I used to think there were no surprises left between us. I knew how Mark ordered his coffee, how he folded his t-shirts like a store display, how he rubbed the bridge of his nose when a headache was coming. I knew which songs would pull him out of a bad mood, and which jokes always landed flat, even though he tried them anyway. 7 years of marriage, almost 10 together, and I thought we were built on bedrock. Routine, steadiness, the simple comfort of being chosen and choosing back. Maybe that's why I mistook my restlessness for growth. Maybe that's why I believed telling him I might be polyamorous would make us stronger, not burn the house down. I told myself it was honesty. In reality, it was me handing him a bomb and acting shocked when it went off. It started with late-night scrolling. I'd lie next to him while he slept and read post after post about ethical non-monogamy, about people who loved more than one partner without lying, without sneaking. The words felt brave and shiny. They made my ordinary life feel small. There were stories about couples who opened up and swore their connection deepened, about people who said jealousy could be managed with rules and calendars and long conversations. I pictured us there too. Still married, still solid, just bigger. I didn't tell Mark any of this. I told myself I'd bring it up when the timing was right, as if there's a right time to tell your husband the rules changed. The restlessness leaked into small things. I got a new haircut, something sharp with bangs. I switched gyms and started going to a climbing club where nobody knew me as Mark's wife. I accepted drinks at work happy hours and held eye contact a beat too long. I would come home humming with the attention of strangers, lay down next to the man who had loved me when nobody else did, and feel a tug in my chest I labeled curiosity so I didn't have to call it what it was. Hunger for something I couldn't name. Mark noticed the surface changes without seeing the root. New hair looks good, he'd say, and mean it. You've been out a lot. Do you want me to come next time? I'd tell him it was just work, just routine, and promise a date night we'd both be too tired to keep. Our conversation shrank into logistics, rent, car insurance, who was taking the Civic for an oil change. We weren't unhappy. We were quiet. And the quiet made a space where my new ideas could echo louder than they should have. On our 7th anniversary we took a weekend trip to a lakeside inn. He booked a room with a balcony that looked over the water. He brought a small cake in a cooler and candles shaped like a 7 and a heart, and I laughed because it was corny and sweet and exactly him. We clinked plastic champagne flutes and he said, "Here's to us, to making boring look good." I smiled and kissed him, and somewhere inside me a voice whispered, "Boring is safe. Boring is love." Another voice, the one I fed with late-night posts and scrolls and shiny words, whispered back, "Boring is small." I told myself I would wait. I told myself if the feeling faded, I'd keep it as a secret phase and never say it out loud. It didn't fade. It grew teeth. The night I chose, I made his favorite takeout and set the table like it was news worth celebrating. He came home with that crumpled end-of-day look and loosened his tie and smiled because the house smelled like sesame and garlic. We ate and talked about his co-worker's newborn, about the leaky bathroom faucet. I kept nodding and making encouraging noises until my heart beat so loud I couldn't hear him anymore. "There's something I want to tell you," I said, and immediately hated how it sounded like a confession. He put down his fork. He always did that when I needed to talk. Both feet on the floor, eyes steady, ready to listen. "Okay," he said softly. I had practice lines in the car, in the shower, while folding towels. In practice, I was calm and wise. In real life, my mouth went dry. "I've been reading and thinking a lot," I started. "About relationships. About love. And I think. Please hear me all the way. I think I might be polyamorous." The word hung in the air, bigger than I meant it to be. He didn't blink. He didn't frown. He didn't do anything, which somehow felt worse than if he'd laughed. I rushed on, thinking speed could soften it. "I love you. That hasn't changed. This isn't about you not being enough. It's about me feeling like my capacity for love might be more than one person. People do this in a healthy way, with rules and consent and honesty. We could talk to someone together. A therapist. Read the same things I've been reading. We could try." He held up one hand. Not a stop sign exactly. More like a pause button. His voice, when it came, was flat and careful. "I'm not your experiment." I felt heat crawl up my neck. "It's not an experiment, it's a part of me I ignored. I'm trying to be honest. I could have cheated, but I didn't. I brought it to you because I want us to decide together. That's respect." He stood, the chair legs scraping the tile. He went to the bedroom without a word. I sat there with my untouched noodles and the stupid plastic flutes, and listened to drawers open and close. When I finally followed, he had the duffel bag from the top shelf on the bed, and was filling it like a man packing for a storm. Socks, boxers, 2 pairs of jeans, the gray hoodie he always stole back from me. "You're leaving." I heard my voice go thin like a string pulled tight. He paused, looked at me, and I saw it then. The quick blink he does when he's pushing tears back. "You waited 7 years to tell me I'm not enough in the form we agreed to. You had all this time to be honest with yourself and with me. You weren't." He folded a t-shirt so precisely it made me want to scream. "You want to redefine the entire agreement of our marriage and call it growth. It's selfish." "I'm not bored," I snapped before realizing he hadn't used that word. "I'm trying to be real about who I am." He zipped the bag. The sound felt like a door closing. Honesty is telling the truth before you set the fire, not after you smell smoke. He slung the strap over his shoulder and moved past me. At the front door, he stopped and rested his palm on the frame like he was steadying himself. "I gave you everything I had. If that isn't enough for you, that's your right. It's also my right to walk away." He left without slamming the door. Somehow that hurt more than if he had. The fallout came fast. I called my sister that night, crying so hard my chest ached. She said, "You told him you want other men. What did you expect?" I said it wasn't about other men, it was about love being bigger. She said, "Your marriage wasn't small because it was monogamous. It was small because you made it small in your head." My mother called the next morning and spoke to me like I was 13, and had been caught sneaking out. "I love you," she said, "but I love the version of you that keeps promises too." Mark told his sister. She texted me once, "He's staying with us. He's hurting, but he's calm. Please don't reach out unless it's logistics." I stared at the message until my eyes blurred, then typed back, "Thanks for telling me. I won't." My thumbs hovered, wanting to add "tell him I love him." I didn't. I made tea I didn't drink and sat at our kitchen table with my hands flat against the wood, the same table where I set the bomb. I moved into a 1-bedroom with thin walls above a nail salon that smells like acetone at all hours. The first night, I slept with the TV on to drown out my own thoughts. I told myself this was the start of my honest chapter. I downloaded apps. I made a profile that said ethical non-monogamy in soft, neutral words. The messages rolled in fast and gross. Some wanted threesomes. Some wanted proof I'd really been married. One guy kept asking if my husband could watch. I deleted the app and cried into a towel because the pillowcases were still in a box. At work, people pretended not to know the details while knowing enough. Our HR manager asked if I needed flex time. A woman I ate lunch with twice a week suddenly had a standing appointment somewhere else. My boss, who loved Mark because he helped us move offices in one weekend and refused help for the pizza money, asked about him in a too casual tone. "You two still?" I lied and said we were taking space. He nodded like he was approving a PTO request. I went to one of those meetups in a rented back room of a cafe. People talking softly about boundaries and compersion and color-coded calendars. They were kind. They were gentle. They were also strangers, and every sentence they said landed next to a separate reality in my head where Mark was reading on our couch with his feet tucked under him, stopping to hand me his book and say, "Listen to this line." On the train home, I cried so quietly the woman next to me handed me a napkin without looking up from her phone. 2 months after he left, divorce paperwork showed up by email from a lawyer with a name that sounded like a law firm built in a mall. The terms were fair, almost kind. He didn't fight me for the car. He didn't ask for money. He asked for the houseplants he'd propagated and his grandmother's casserole dish. And I sat on my floor and sobbed into that stupid casserole dish, because he still wanted to make something warm even while the rest of our life was cold. The day the divorce was final, I didn't tell anyone. I went to work, answered emails, came home, and microwaved soup. That night I typed out a long message to him. About regret, about how wrong my timing had been, about how honesty doesn't count when it arrives after the damage. And I deleted it because apologies don't glue broken things back together, they only make noise over the silence. 6 months in, I saw him on social media because the algorithm hates clean cuts. He was at a street fair, laughing with a woman in a yellow dress. She had paint on her fingers and a camera around her neck. They looked warm and simple together, the way we used to look before I started digging for bigger. I clicked her profile like someone pressing a bruise. She posted photos of murals and dogs and him from the side, focused on something in the distance. The caption under one picture said, "Steady," and the word gutted me because that's exactly what he was for me until I told him stability was somehow less than love. I tried dating. A man named Felix with loud shirts and a louder laugh told me he was young and curious. He talked about rules in Google Calendars and asked if I'd ever share a partner. I heard myself giving the answers I used to rehearse in the dark, the ones about boundaries and check-ins, and my voice sounded like a script I didn't believe anymore. At the end of the night he tried to kiss me and I turned my face so his mouth landed on my cheek. On the walk home I realized I hadn't once pictured introducing him to my parents. With Mark I could see the whole map. With anyone else it was fog. I joined a book club to fill evenings. I started running again, slow loops around a track where teenagers lapped me and didn't care. I went to therapy. The therapist asked me to say what I wanted without saying what I was afraid of. I sat there and didn't speak for a full minute, because it turns out I only knew how to talk in negatives. I didn't want boredom. I didn't want to feel small. I didn't want to be the only source of someone's happiness. She waited and finally I said, I wanted to be chosen and free at the same time. She said, those two words fight unless you pick one first. I stared at the carpet and wished wisdom felt more like relief and less like a throat closing. A year after he left, I saw him at the farmer's market we used to love. I froze by the peaches like a cartoon character with my shadow stuck to the ground. He looked the same, maybe thinner. He had a canvas tote, and that woman in the yellow dress was with him. He saw me and for a second his face twitched between shock and soft. I lifted my hand. He nodded, polite like we were neighbors. She touched his elbow. I heard myself say, hi, and he said, hey. Hope you're well. I lied and said, you too, and moved on. I bought peaches I didn't need, and threw one away in the trash can by the exit because the pit tasted like regret. People love to say there are no good guys anymore. I hear it all the time from friends and from my own mouth when I want comfort without honesty. But there are good men. There are steady men who will pack a bag and leave quietly rather than scream, who will refuse to drag your name through the mud even when you hand them the rope. Mark was that. He didn't humiliate me. He didn't tell our friends I'd ruined his life. He said the truth once and then lived it. He built something new while I was still sifting through the ashes for pieces I could polish and pretend were whole. I wish I could hand you a neat lesson that makes me sound brave. I wish I could say I followed my truth and found a community and a self that fits better. Maybe someday that will be true. Right now, the truth is simpler and less flattering. I wanted to feel big without doing the work to be kind. I wanted to add without subtracting. I wanted more without counting the cost. And when the cost came due, he was the one who paid it with a packed bag and a closed door and a dignity I didn't deserve. I keep the casserole dish he didn't ask for by mistake. Sometimes I bake in it and bring food to the neighbors who fight, because warm things are still worth making even when you're alone. I water the last plant he left behind, a pothose that forgives neglect by growing anyway, and I put it where the light is good. On my fridge there's a magnet shaped like a tiny red heart holding a grocery list that never has anything romantic on it, just eggs and bread and coffee filters. I used to think the magnet should hold something big. Concert tickets, plane reservations, proof that life was exciting. Now it holds paper that keeps me fed. I don't message him. I don't accidentally bump into him. I don't build stories where he misses me and comes back. I live in the choice I made and let him live in the choice he made. If that sounds like defeat, you haven't met peace. It's smaller than I imagined and cleaner. It's doing the dishes after one person's dinner. It's running 2 miles without timing myself. It's telling the truth early next time, even if the truth makes me look selfish, because the only thing worse than breaking someone's heart is handing them the hammer and pretending it's a flower. He won, if winning means walking away with your principles intact and your head up. He won, not because he replaced me with someone younger or hotter or louder, but because he refused to be turned into an option after 7 years of being my home. I lost, not because I wanted something different, but because I waited until different meant destruction. People online still post about love being bigger than two. Maybe it is. For them. My love was big enough for one man who folded t-shirts just so and never forgot my coffee order. I made it small by thinking I needed more to feel alive. Sometimes I pass the theater near our old apartment and see a couple holding hands on the sidewalk, laughing at nothing. I feel the ghost of what we were and keep walking. At night I turn off my phone, not because anyone is waiting for me, but because silence doesn't scare me like it used to. I get into bed on the left side out of habit, and leave the right side smooth and empty. I stare at the ceiling fan until it blurs and I say out loud to nobody, "I'm sorry." The room doesn't answer. The fan keeps turning. Morning comes anyway. I make coffee and add the last filter to the grocery list, and, for once, I don't try to make the moment bigger than it is. It's small. It's honest. It's mine.